Hi. Today we're going to discuss wide-legged forward fold, also called Prasarita Padottanasana. In your wide-legged forward fold, you'll find a great benefit for stretching and strengthening the legs, especially the inside of the legs, which we don't always get a little work into. And you're going to work more into the back of the legs and the hamstrings. Also feel some into the hips, and you'll also get some love throughout the spine. You also find that your wide-legged forward fold can be a really calming pose as you find your stance and you feel comfortable in it. You'll find that you're more regulated and just overall feel more balanced and calm as you're practicing. Like most of the asanas, we will start from the feet up. And so with the wide-legged forward fold, of course, you have your stance. And the width of the stance will vary from person to person. If it's much too wide, you may feel really unstable as you start to lean forward. If it's too short, well, then the stance won't be as effective for you in particular. So work with it and find where you want your feet at. And as you are in the stance, you could also wiggle them out or scoot them in a little bit just to correct and help yourself feel more comfortable. Now, the feet themselves, generally we're going to be facing the long edge of a mat just so that our feet have something to grip onto. And the feet will be parallel with the top and the bottom edge of the mat. The toes should stay just slightly turned inward, so you're just slightly pigeon-toed when you're starting your wide-legged forward fold. When you're pressing into your feet, you are definitely feeling and firming into the outside, the knife edge of your feet, but you should also be pressing into your big toe edge and also your heel. Now, as you are leaning forward and you have your body weight all the way over in your wide-legged forward fold, it's important to have some pressure into the ball of the foot. I think the tendency for most people is to lean back into the heels because of that fear of falling over, but you can use your hands to help counteract that. Maybe start here, have the hands more in front of the chest as you lower down, and keep that body weight shifting into the balls of the feet until you'll feel more and more comfortable to lower the torso even further, and maybe walk the hands back behind the legs as you get into the full extension of your pose. Moving up from the feet, of course, we get into the legs. And this is a big stretch into the back of the legs. So for most of us, our hamstrings are rather tight. So if you want to keep a nice bend in the knees, a good deep bend, so that you can keep the torso straight and start bending from the hips, that's where you should start. And start from that direction and just start to lower down until you feel a stretch. Use the hands maybe for support, lowering them, or also, these are my skinny blocks today, but you could have blocks underneath your hands to bring the mat a little bit closer, and then keep the spine nice and straight. On the opposite end of the spectrum, we also don't want to hyperextend the knees. So as you forward fold, have a tiny bend in the knees is very helpful to protect the joint so that you can lower down, keep the knees just a tiny bit bent, and then activate the thighs. Start to draw the kneecaps up so that you protect through the knee joint. Now, as we go further up the body, we're into the torso. Starting the wide-legged forward fold, we're starting from the hips and we're keeping the torso very long. So we're not rounding to reach the floor. I'll show you from a side view. Keep one foot on my mat here. So my toes are turned slightly inward. We can start with the hands on the hips, staying nice and tall. We start to lean forward from the hips and fold down, maybe stopping halfway if this was where you want to stay, or come all the way down. Maybe the hands come behind you. I'm only going to go this far because I am only partly on my mat. What we need to avoid is coming down and rounding down like this, so that we're kind of in a little frog-like position and we're just rounding into that torso just so that we can reach the mat a little bit easier. We want to stay nice and straight through the torso and lower down only till our point that we can lower no more without keeping that spine nice and straight. I know this posture seems like it's all about the lower body because your lower body is definitely working, but of course you still have a position of the shoulder and the arms. So when you come into your wide-legged forward fold, there are many different options you can take, but the traditional option is to have the wrists in line with the shoulders. Maybe your head comes all the way down to the mat, maybe it doesn't, but we want to still keep those shoulders wide and down the back so that they're not creeping up towards the ears. So you can see here, I'm just like scrunching into the upper body, and I'm just trying to force myself into this position versus here where my shoulders are down and along the back. It can help keep my spine much straighter by letting the shoulders spread wide. We'll cover quickly what the head and the crown should do when you're in your wide-legged forward fold. So starting in your stance, the feet are as wide as you feel that you can take them. The knees maybe just have a micro bend in them. Start to bend from the hips, keeping the spine nice and straight. Maybe once you pass that halfway point, you take the hands down towards the mat, and then the head and the neck should just release, just relax all the way down. If they touch the mat, that's perfect. That's wonderful. Glad you're where you're at, but wherever you're at, we just let the head and the neck drop straight towards the earth, and the gaze goes directly behind you. We're not looking at the mat, so we don't want any wrinkles in the neck. We don't want to look down like this. Just release the head down and relax. And this is where that calming portion of the posture comes in. As you hold it here, again, remember in the feet, we want some weight coming into the ball of the foot. So you might feel that little tipping motion, like you might fall towards the front or the side of the mat here. But if you keep your balance and with practice, you can hold this for quite a long time. In your wide-legged forward fold, there are so many options that you can take in this posture. And traditionally, you have wide-legged forward fold versions A, B, C, and D. And I'll demonstrate those for you here real quick. In your wide-legged forward fold, the traditional asana, wide-legged forward fold A, you come in your wide-legged forward fold posture, and you lower down. And this is where the head drops, and the hands walk behind. Maybe the head comes all the way to the mat. Sometimes if our legs are a little shorter, that's a little easier. In version B of the wide-legged forward fold, the hands come to the hips. And from here, we just start to lower down. And release all the way down, but the hands just stay on the hips. In version C, you can start with the hands interlaced behind the back, start to draw the knuckles down, gaze comes up, and from here, a little micro bend in the knees as you bend from the hips, and you release down. This is a little more difficult on the balance, but it's a great shoulder opener and a great way to teach how to keep the weight in the ball of the foot. In version D, we start as we do in all of the others with their feet just pigeon-toed inward. Maybe you can start with the hands at the hips, lowering down, keeping the spine nice and long. And in version D, the difference with the arms is that they come to the outside of the ankles. And you can use that grip to pull yourself a little lower. Gaze stays behind you and the elbows widen out. When you come out of it, just a soft bend in the knees and start to lift up.